What up, guys, and TGIF. Huge week coming up for the Koberger case. So I want to do a couple preview segments, this one focusing specifically on the motion to suppress the investigative genetic genealogy, or IGG. These hearings are ultra critical because the Koberger defense team believes, quote, without IGG, the state has no case. So let's get into it. Historically, in this case, due to privacy concerns related to IGG, virtually every legal disclosure has been sealed to the public, as has been every hearing except for the first. The Koberger defense team is asking to finally lift the veil of secrecy draped over this case and wants to open up to the public next week both the IGG legal briefing and the critical motion to suppress hearing. That is precisely why we see two IGG hearings listed herein. The first, on Tuesday, is a motion hearing to unseal the legal briefing and also to unseal the official motion to suppress the IGG hearing on Thursday. Before we get into why the defense wants to suppress the IGG and what precisely the FBI might have done illegally, let's review a couple of quotes from the recently filed motion to unseal the IGG hearing, as well as a few facts we know to date. First up, quote, here the way in which the IGG material was accessed and used warrants public disclosure, and quote, the public has a right to know how genetic information was used in this case. So this is the very essence for the defense argument to unseal. They're like, hey, look, Judge, we believe that the FBI did not do everything on the up and up here with Brian's IGG, and we also think the public needs to know the facts. Next up, quote, the issues raised in Mr. Koberger's motion to suppress are those that were discussed in the first motion to compel IGG hearing. This is super important because it indicates to me some of the critical testimony from IGG expert Gabriela Vargas at that hearing, which I will go into detail very soon because it specifically details with, quote, how the FBI might have broken its own rules on this case. And you know I love my facts, so let's go over a few which will help to add more context to what follows. First up, we know that Brian made it abundantly clear to the court that he was going to challenge the IGG and DNA in this case way back in June of 2023, which was when prosecutors first disclosed their use of IGG, and is what they also stated they relied on first to ultimately arrive at and identify Mr. Koberger as their prime suspect. Next up, we also know from exclusive reporting in the Idaho Statesman last year that Brian factually submitted his own DNA profile to a genetic genealogy DNA database company like Family Tree DNA or Ancestry.com. Last but not least, we know after the hearing last year where Gabriela Vargas testified on behalf of Brian, Mr. Bill Thompson sent the FBI to her home unannounced because they had taken issue with some of her testimony, a portion of which detailed how law enforcement can manipulate data and search results in an IGG and also create consumer accounts and search DNA profiles they are not legally allowed to search. Let that one sink in. So without further ado, let's get into it. Did the FBI factually, quote, violate its own IGG rules? As we know, the Koberger defense team is alleging one gigantic constitutional violation in the IGG, which, according to law enforcement, served as the original, quote, tip or lead for them to arrive at the name Brian Koberger. Could that violation be that the FBI did not utilize the proper law enforcement channels, but instead created a fake consumer Koberger account to search DNA profiles they were not legally allowed to search? At the August 2023 hearing, genetic genealogist Gabriela Vargas explains how this happens. And is this precisely why the Koberger defense team wanted so desperately to see Brian's IGG profile and data? Roll the tape.
Another instance is uploading the data as if you were a consumer. And you also get full access to the database, including matches that have opted out. Does this happen? Yes. If you wanted to know what the process was, you wanted to verify how did you come to your conclusion, you would need to see the data. I wanted to know what the rules were. You would need the data. You would need to see the data.
So in conclusion, is it possible that the FBI violated its own rules and illegally searched a DNA database they were not legally allowed to search? And even more intriguing, is it also possible that Brian opted out of law enforcement IGD searches and the FBI also accessed his DNA profile directly? And or also in the process, did the FBI override and or manipulate any IGD search results to reach a quote desired outcome? All of these questions, intel, and more listed herein beg the ultimate question. Do you believe that this hearing should be open to the public or sealed to the public next week? Talk to me.